Hi, I'm Dan Barrera. In this short video, we'll look at how to set up a job and project using the standard interface of the LanTEK IV. So we've got the keyboard and mouse connected here. So the first thing to know is that there's two user interface modes with LanTEK IV. So if I click on the preferences icon and go down to this option for operating mode, I have standard and advanced available to me. So I'll click over to advanced right now and hit continue. I can use either the touch screen or the mouse in this case. And we can see that the home screen has changed so that we have our current job name, project name at the top with the results of the previous test that was run, and then a list of tests in this job that have not been run yet. So I can scroll down and see that there's 24 tests in this job that have not been run. Now I'm going to change back to the standard mode. So we'll go back to the settings icon, and we can see in the operational mode, it also tells us what the current mode is. So I'm just going to go back here and we will just scroll this down to standard, hit continue. And now we are in the standard interface, and that shows at the top the name and result of the test that was previously run, the name of the next test that will be run, as well as the type of test. So a Cat 6A would be the next test to perform, the project name, the test configuration, and the operator name. So let's go set up a new project. So I'll click on the search icon over here. And this brings us to a list of the projects that are currently in the LanTEK, as well as the number of tests that are set in that project. So I'm going to click the plus icon up here to add, and we'll enter a name. So we'll call this training 2, training space 2, and I'll hit tab, and we can use what are called job identifiers. These are optional. So the default is not required, but let's go ahead and turn this on. So we have a TIA 606 standard and custom. So custom has a really nice set of features for us. So we have 5 what we call metadata tags that are available, and we can enable or disable these. And you can see they go from large to small. So starting at the building level, going down to the panel level. And we can choose which of these we want to enable. So I'm going to tick building, cabinet, and panel. So we can see once those are enabled, we have a drop down for each. So we can call it building, site, or area. So we have those 3 options. Under cabinet, we have cabinet, rack, enclosure, MDF, frame, and wall space. So you can choose whichever one of these names best suits your naming convention. So let's call it rack. And then for panel, we can choose several things here: panel IDF, MDF, office block, CP, or patch panel. So let's call it patch panel. So we have a job called training 2. We've enabled metadata identifier tags for building, rack, and patch panel. Now again, this is all optional, doesn't need to be done, but I'm going to press OK here. So now we've created a new job called training 2. There's no tests in it. Now when we create a new job, it becomes the default job. So if I go back here, you can see training 2 is the job that is going to be used to store our next set of tests in. So now that we've set up a new job, let's go look at setting the test standard. So if I click on the box for test standard, it will give us these 4 different levels which we need to configure. So the first one is what we call the test group. So we have TIA at the top, followed by ISO, ISO IEC, Senelec, and so on. So we would choose the group or test standard organization that we want to test. So let's say we're going to do an ISO test. So we'll select ISO 11801 2017. Now we need to choose the topology or type of test. So are we doing a channel test with channel adapters, a patch cord test, or a permanent link test? So let's set up permanent link. That's going to be the most common type. And then we have the different classes available. So we'll go down and do a class EA, which is equivalent to a class 6A. Now, once we get down here, we have several choices. We have EA Max, PL1, PL2, CP1. So this is the most typical configuration where you're going to have a patch panel and an outlet at one end, and you can have a consolidation point in the middle. And max means that we are going to run all of the possible tests. So beyond just the basic minimum test, we're also going to test and do a pass-fail measurement for things like DC resistance unbalance, TCL, and ELTCL, which are optional for Class EA. But in this case, if we choose max, it's telling the tester, I want to measure those and do a pass-fail result on them. So that may be a requirement. If we don't need that, the standard test would just be the same measurement without the max. So this is still going to measure those parameters. So we always measure every parameter with every auto test, and that does not increase the test time. But what we're doing is not running a pass-fail check against, in this case, resistance unbalance, TCL, and ELTCL. Those measurements are there. We're just not going to do a pass-fail check, which means later on, though, we can recertify and do a pass-fail against those measurements in the future if we need to. So perhaps if we're going to do we want to run PoE over that cabling later, we can go back and recertify that cabling for resistance unbalance to make sure it supports PoE, even if we didn't select that when we originally ran this test. Okay, so all those settings we have just made are shown up here. And if I wanted to change one of them, I can just click on any of those and change that option. Now down below here, these identify the cable and connector type. They don't affect the test measurement other than whether it's a shielded or unshielded test cable. So currently the default that's shown here is a Cat6a STP. If I go into this cable selection, we have generic at the top and then followed by a list of brands. So if you have a specific brand and model of cable, you can go in, find your brand, find the model number, and select that, and that will show on your report. Though if we don't care about that, we just want to put in generic, then we get a list of all of our typical cable configurations. So let's do a Cat6a UTP, all right? We can choose our connector brands, and those again would just show on the report, but we'll leave it at generic. And then lastly, we can set the NVP. So the default for a 6A UTP cable is 72. I can just edit that if I want. So let's say it's 68% for this cable, I'll hit tab. Or I can measure the NVP by clicking that, connecting a known length of cable, hitting the measure button. So if we look at what that will do, we would connect the cable, enter the length of it, click measure, and then it will calculate the NVP and feed that back to us. But we'll just leave it at 60. We'll go back and set that to 68. 68, enter, and hit OK. So now our configuration is shown here. And the last thing we do is we'll change the operator name. So this will appear on the report. And what it does is let you see who was running the tester when each of these measurements was performed. So I click on this and it shows the name of operators that are set up in our tester. I'm Dan, so let's go change it back to Dan. So I'll just click and hold on Dan and do set as current operator, and then go back and we see my name here. So now this job's all ready to set up, and it's set up, we're ready to test. So we would connect our test adapters, plug into our patch panel here, and perform a test, and away we go. I'm Dan. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.